We begin tonight's episode of the Edward Fowler Show with some sad news that 2 years ago-ish, almost 2 years ago, I brought on Jordan Jacob Garber onto my then audio podcast of this show, which is still available right now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. He was a great guy, cool guy, knowledgeable on all things to do with interviewing, podcasting, and with pro wrestling, which is what he's into. And unfortunately, the past few days, I came across some very sad posts that unfortunately he has passed away. I don't know what's happened or anything like that, but my thoughts are with his family and friends at this time, and we thank him again for his time 2 years ago for coming on the show. And I've heard a lot of great stories over the past few days of how cool he was in person, because again, I didn't know him that well. I knew him like an acquaintance, but I didn't know him personally. But once again, all our thoughts who work at the Edward Fowler Show are with Jordan, friends and family tonight. But welcome to the Edward Fowler Show, and we scheduled this for yesterday. Yeah, but my guest, I'll introduce you to in a moment, forgot that he just got the times confused, which is my apologies for that, because I kind of blame me for not clarifying what I meant. So because we scheduled this for because I messaged you at 5 in the morning when we were discussing it all, so we were discussing a different time slots. So I may have been a bit sleepy when we discussed it, but we made it happen. And this is a great person, and I did not know this, because the way we did this was because for about a few years or so, you have followed me on Twitter. I don't know why you follow me on Twitter. Maybe if you know why, you can let me know. But any person who is verified on Twitter, I just follow back. So then one day I was scrolling through my Twitter account, and I'm thinking, who is Jody Whitesides? No offense to you. So therefore, okay, and I know who he is. And then I reached out to you, and then this is how we've done it. So this is how we've done it, just for explanation, in case you're thinking, why is this bizarre person from the UK reaching out to me for? So there's your explanation, if you needed one. He is a songwriter, he is a producer, he is a composer, whatever you want to call him. And his name is Jody Whitesides. He joined us from Idaho, is that right? Utah, sorry, my mistake, Utah. He is live with us in Utah. You can see on your screen there with all his guitars behind him. How are you doing, and how was your new year?
I'm doing well. We're still kind of in a lockdown kind of phase. Utah was kind of one of those weird states in America that did not do an actual lockdown, but where I live in Utah did, because the health department here, in my mind, is smart. The weird thing about it is that early on, when this was all announced, like back in early March, late February of 2019, where I'm at was number 5 for most cases per capita for what we call a county in America. And we got clamped down pretty hard, pretty quick, so we dropped out of the top 5. But now, as of like a few days ago, the entire state of Utah is now top 5 in the nation of all 50 states in America, to now have most cases per capita top 5, which is not, in my mind, is not a good record to have. But I feel very fortunate that I did not catch COVID so far as of yet, so I'm all good.
Well, it's good to hear, and I'm sorry to hear about Utah, and hopefully I keep going Utah, don't I? It's not. Oh, it is Utah now. I got it right, haven't I?
Say that
you're
again?
in Utah, aren't you?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought I got the location wrong there again now. But Idaho, but yeah, Utah. I apologize for. I feel sorry for the people in Utah at the moment with what's going on there. But hopefully it won't be for too long. I do hope that you guys are able to get your numbers down and return to some kind of normal again. And I think you meant 2020, didn't you? Not 2019, because I know.
Oh, yes, you're correct. I did mean 2020. I'm still thinking like I'm in 2020. I'm sorry. We're in 2021 now.
You're not alone. I think many people are still thinking it's 2020 because there's nothing much changed, has it really, since 2021. So it's easy a mistake. But I just want to clarify. I'm thinking, I remember back in 2019, there was no word of the COVID business. But yeah.
Yes.
I'm just being nosy, but I like your collection. Go ahead.
Sorry, broke up there. Sorry. I was just going to point out that part of the reason why it might still feel like 2020 is just the sheer madness that we've had in the past few days with people going and overtaking Congress, like insurrection, I guess, or trying a coup d'etat for the former president. Well, he's not former yet, but he will be soon. And it's kind of sad. It's not my understanding of how all of this should work, I guess is a good way of saying it. And I don't agree with the people that did that. It's the voters have spoken. The courts have proven that there's been no major mass whatever with our voting system. And it's just sad to see people react like this.
Yes, it's been an interesting few days in America, and we've all been watching what's been going on, on our favourite networks here in the UK of the madness, and as you say, the madness, and people think there's been fraud and whatnot, but again, who knows what's really gone on behind closed doors on election days and whatnot. All we know is they've announced who apparently won, and people are upset because they think it's not correct how they've voted and whatnot, how they counted the votes, but
well, they've been unable to prove it in court. So if you can't prove it in a court of law, you've got a real problem. So, and I don't want to get into the whole political thing, but it's just that's it, in my mind. It's like if you cannot prove it in a court of law and show the actual evidence, then you've got a real problem. That it didn't really happen, or if it has happened, somebody's being very good at covering up several million votes.
Yes,
and that's not an easy task, if you ask me.
No, I'm sure it's not. But moving on from politics into yourself, I'm liking your collection of guitars behind you. By the way, out of that collection, which ones are your favorites you've played on? Cool.
That's them right there.
Did you catch that question?
Let's see. This one right here is my very first guitar, my first electric guitar that I ever got. And I call it the desert guitar. And the reason for that is the image that's on it is of southern Utah desert, and it's got a snake that wraps around the body and goes to the other side. And on the back, there's a waterfall. This particular guitar was a Fender Strat at one point. It's still, I guess it's a Strat-like because it's the Strat body. But filled in the pickup holes, routed this out with a buddy of mine who makes my guitars. His company is called Joe's Guitars. We did that at music school. Nice. This is a piece of the original pick guard that covered the whole thing. The neck has been replaced. It was modified heavily because it used to look like an old heavy metal Jackson Charvel headstock, and somebody mentioned that to me, and because I don't really play metal music anymore, I had my guitar making buddy modify the headstock so it didn't look that way, and now it looks absolutely bizarre. This particular guitar has actually been on more records than I have.
Oh wow.
I have guitar playing friends of mine who play it are floored by how well it plays and how good it sounds for what it is, and they borrow it and then they record with it and then they give it back. So yeah, technically speaking, this has been on more records than I have. It's kind of like if you're familiar with Van Halen, and he had what they called his Frankenstein guitar. That this is kind of like my Frankenstein guitar. but I didn't intend when I first did everything to it to copy Eddie in any way, shape, or form. It just ended up being this journey of like, how do I make a guitar that does exactly what I want with what I have at the moment that I had it? So it was originally cherry red, and it took me about a month to strip the paint off of it.
Oh, wow.
Because however Fender used to paint their bodies was extremely difficult to get off the wood. The particular colors that we used on this, my dad did this because he was a commercial illustrator for his career.
Oh, nice.
We used auto body paint. So the same paint that you would use to paint a car with is the paint that we used on this, and then had it clear coated. We found that there was an error somewhere in it when it came to the rattlesnake, his tail, and trying to sand it down without sanding off what had already been done, and then painting it and then getting it re-clear coated several times, kind of left layers in the clear coat. So it's got all kinds of weird oddities to it. When I first started with it, as I said, at music school, a buddy of mine who now builds guitars, that's kind of like his day job. He builds guitars, and his company is called Joe's Guitars. And he wanted a single coil pickup and asked if I would give him one of the single coil pickups out of my guitar in exchange for a humbucker pickup, which is a 2 pickups side by side kind of thing. And so I said, sure. And he came over to my apartment in LA, and we took probably the most, I don't want to say how amateur way of modifying a guitar. We took a drill and literally hand drilled the hole to make it big enough for a humbucker pickup, which is not the way a guitar maker would ever do anything. But that's how we did it. And then in order to fit the pickup for the original pick guard when I had it, we used a soldering iron to melt the plastic to make the hole big enough, and it stunk up the place. It smelled horrible. But it was a fun modification to try and do, and it got me a humbucker pickup, and he got the single coil that he wanted. And it just that was the beginning journey of that guitar getting modified and changed all over the place. The second most used guitar that I have is this one, which is that same guy when he's now building guitars. He calls this a diner guitar.
I can see why.
It's made out of old diner tabletop.
Yeah.
It's got the metal band from Diner straps on the sides of their tables, and this is the formica of and this is actual tabletop from an old Diner table. Same thing happens with this. Friends of mine play it, and they love it so much that they then order one and get one built for themselves. This one is actually a prototype of the particular series known as the Eat at Joe's Diner guitars. This says Eat at Joe's in glow-in-the-dark lettering right here.
Oh, nice.
So if the lights go out, you can see Eat at Joe's lights up.
That's
so it's pretty cool. This one sounds great. That's two of the many that I have. Yes.
Yeah. Well, very interesting stories of how they were made and the background behind them as well. It's quite very cool. I mean, if anybody didn't know the history behind my guest's guitars, then you now know 2 of them behind the story. Which is quite good. This is quite good. And as you mentioned there, some of your friends have played them. So I mean, like, who has had the opportunity then to play some of your guitars then?
Well, with the Diner series, a guy named Robert Navarro played it, and he's a big time production music kind of musician. Oh, yeah. And which is the kind of music that you hear behind film and TV things, the sports networks, that kind of stuff. He played it. He liked it so much, he went and ordered one. Another friend of mine by the name of Chris Hellstrom, who I do the podcast that I mentioned to you about, yeah. He played one and really loved it, but he didn't play that one. He played a different one and ordered a 7-string guitar.
Gotcha.
which is also the one. I have two 7-string guitars. Both of them are the prototypes for his 7-string series lines. So I'm kind of like the guy that pesters my friend about, hey, let's build one of these. And then he builds it. People play it. They're like, oh, I want one. So then they go and get one. So that and then like on the original Fender one, that is my Frankenstein style one, it's several different guitar players who played that. Robert's one, Chris's one. Doug Bossy is another guitar player who played with the likes of, I want to say Iron Butterfly, the Mustard Seeds. I think he might have been in Whitesnake for a hot minute. I almost want to say Iron Butterfly. Did I say Iron Butterfly? I'm trying to think of some of the other bands. Another guy is John Butler, who played with the Boogie Nights and a few other things. So Roxanne. So guys like that have played the guitars, and then they go on and either say, hey, can I borrow it? Or if it's in the case of my friend Joe, who does the Joe's guitars, they order one and get one of their own.
Pretty neat. Yeah. Yes. Friends who like us to borrow things and then like it so much, they will have their own ones instead of just borrowing it from you when you need it, kind of thing. Pretty neat. Yeah. So now, of course, I've done some research on you because, I thought, wow, we've got this great guy coming on my show. He's an award-winning producer. You are like the third award-winning person to come on this show. So congratulations on your award. I don't know what it was for, however, but I'm sure you can explain what award it was. But you followed in the footsteps of Chris Van Vliet, who is a 5-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster and a one-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster as well, who came on my show as a newscaster in Kentucky. But tell me, what award was it? And my viewers.
I've won a couple of awards, actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Mention them all.
One of them was for a song called Falling In. And I liked it so much after winning the award that I actually got it tattooed on my arm. With the title and the actual sound wave of where I say the title for the first time in the song, or sing the title for the first time in the song. It won for Best Music Video Award from an organization called Just Plain Folks, which has a very, very large music awards. Up until a few years ago, it was annual, and then the founder kind of had some health problems, and I think they're now done with doing their awards. The second award that I won was actually with my friend that I mentioned a moment ago, Robert Navarro. We company out of the UK called, at the time was called Sonaton. I think they're called a Machem now. We won for the ProMax Broadcast Convention Audience Choice Award.
Oh, nice.
For a song that we did, and we had no idea. I mean, it's not like they told us that we were nominated or anything. It was just like, hey, guess what? You guys have won the Audience Choice Award for this song. And it was like, cool. So, and I guess the ProMax Broadcast Convention is a pretty big deal in the UK. So I unfortunately, I've never been. I have no idea.
Well,
so those are the two awards that I'm aware of. And then I've been in the early rounds of Grammy voting, but I've never made it to the nominated part. But who knows? Sometime soon.
Who knows? You gotta keep your fingers crossed, and you maybe one day become a Grammy Award winner, which would be cool because I think you deserve it from all your work. I mean, and I'm going to go through with everybody here on YouTube who may not never heard of you before that some of the TV shows you may watch. My guest here has influenced some of the songs you may have heard on these TV shows, which is all mentioned by on his official website, which we'll mention as well. So stick tuned for that in a little bit. But again, congratulations on the awards you've won. You're now a part of the award-winning show. Of course, my show has never been awarded yet, so maybe one day I can say awarded show like yourself and my other guests. But you've also
you'll get there.
You've also worked with, of course, Pink, Keisha, and Mike Posner as well. How did that all come about in your life? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I've not actually worked with Pink. I've not worked with Kesha.
Okay.
I have only interacted online with Mike Posner. We've never actually worked together either. I'm not sure how that got wires crossed on that one. I am a big fan of Pink.
It was on
I
the
actually,
internet. And again, because
well,
again, you can't always read everything you read on the internet, but it was in a few different articles. I didn't trust one article. I went on a few of them, so I can link you up after the interviews are over to show you where I got these articles from. And apparently, it says on the two articles I read, it said you've worked with Pink and Keisha and Mike Posner. So I apologize.
Wow.
That's not me. So
No,
that's fake news by them, and so I can now whoop that out of my description box after this is over because that's incorrect news, not by me. But go ahead. How did you and Mike Posner interact then on social media? But I'm glad you're also a big fan of Pink, because I do like her songs I'm still a rock star. So what? I'm still a rock star. I love that song.
Yeah, no, she's done some great material. She's also worked with some absolutely stunning songwriters. Like I would say the biggest one is probably Max Martin. That guy is the king of pop from probably maybe early 2000s all the way through the end of the 2010s.
Yeah.
So if there was a big hit, chances are it was Max Martin and or his team. As far as how things go with Pink, a good friend of mine was her guitar player for a short bit. But I have no idea how that would relate to me having worked with Pink. Wow.
Well, I was impressed by that. I was impressed that wow, you've got some great guys.
By it. I'd like to know where I was when that happened. It's like, I have no idea. As far as Kesha goes, there was a point where I think we may be both represented by the same performance rights organization here in the States. And when she went through all that ordeal with the producer that she was suing, I think it was, I kind of tried to reach out through a mutual friend to see if there would be something that we could possibly work together on, but it never came to fruition, and I highly doubt that she even got the word at all. So I wouldn't have gone around trying to say, I worked with Kesha, because that actually hasn't happened. So I'm not sure how about that either.
And you don't seem like the person who would go around, saying that, because you don't seem a kind of person to have a big ego. Just to say, because some people just say, I've talked with this person, and then people say, and then they say on the internet, don't they, like, I worked with them because I spoke with them, so I've worked with them, kind of thing. But you don't seem the kind of guy who does that.
No, and the industry's too small for that, and I learned that early on in my career. It's just, you can't go around saying shit like that, because it will come back to bite you in the ass, which is interestingly odd that you have found this article somewhere that says that I've worked with those two. As far as the Mike Posner thing goes, he obviously, his big thing of I took a pill in Ibiza was a huge thing, but it was nothing like his original song. That was actually a remix.
Was it really? Now, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The big popular version of that is a remix, because his original version is just him singing with an acoustic guitar, and it's very, very different. Still a great song, but very different.
But not as good as the big remix hit, then, is it? Kind of thing.
No. The remix hit that went gangbusters, and obviously made a more of a name for him. But online on Twitter, when another one of his songs came out, I had actually mentioned something about it, and obviously tagged him in the tweet, and he responded to me. And then I responded back, and that's the extent of any contact I've ever had with Mike Posner. I could say the exact same about Mark Hamill, who was Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, because a few months ago, I tweeted out an image that I thought based on something I read on the internet, that he was the mastermind behind the image. I tweeted it out, and he responded and said, I have nothing to do with it, but I actually love the image. And that actually caused that whole thread to go viral. And we exchanged a couple of tweets, and that's it. That's the extent of anything. I mean, beyond this, I would think at this point, Mark Hamill has no idea who I am. has no memory of it. But of course I do, because I'm a big fan of his Star Wars work and his voiceover work and whatnot. But that has no bearing on the fact that I've ever worked with him. I haven't. I just had a few tweets with him, and that's it. And it's the extent of it. So, I it's not like I go around saying I've worked with somebody when I haven't.
Yeah. Well, I apologize because, again, I didn't write the article, people. You just seen for the first time into my show. Don't think, because if you're a fan of Jody, you might think, why have I wrote this article? I'm not wrote the article. I'm not going to plug the article anyway. So I'm going to DM it to you. I'm going to share my screen to you immediately after this interview. And I'm going to type it in, and then I'll show you where I got it from, and then you can go and report, and reach out to them saying, hey, can you remove this, or edit it and put it why that and not work with these people, because people may see that you actually work like I thought you did, and I thought, wow, this is an impressive dude. But I know one thing, it's
and the funny thing is like I don't know how old the article is, but this is the first I'm hearing of it, so it's like, that ain't me. I didn't do that. I don't believe I ever said that.
It's a few years old. It's not like from like this year or last year. I don't think. I think like from 2019, 2018, maybe even before that. So it's been around for a few years, but. So I just thought, it must be genuine. It was on two articles. So I thought, okay, well, must be true then. Because I like to get my info from more than one source, because in case because some people can just write all sorts, can't they? So, but I know one thing which is not a lie though is your website, and that is your website. This is Jody Whitesides, isn't it? Music.com, I think it is, something like that. JodyWhitesides.com. There you go, that's it. And I had a good look on your website. I like your website, very good, layout. And I love all your articles you post on there as well. Some cool articles to get to know you a bit more. But the interesting page I liked the most was your credits page of where you posted everything, who you've worked with. I'm going to show it to you, my audience, right now on the screen. So these are all the shows you've worked with over the years. Now, how did all this begin? Okay, well, tell me, how did that all start? Okay, and how did that all start then? How did that happen? Did you reach out to them, or did they just use your music without your permission, and then got in contact you when they found out who made the song afterwards, and say, can we use your song anyway?
One of my friends that I mentioned before, Robert Navarro, we went to music school together, and he has been working in what they call production music for a very long time. And late one night, he calls me up and says, hey, what are you doing? I mean, we're talking probably right around midnight. He's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm driving home from such and such. And he goes, can you come over? I need some help. I'm like, okay. And I go over to his studio, and he shows me this piece of music that he's been working on for a commercial,
right? And
says, I need some help. And I'm like, great. And it needs to be done by 6 a.m. And it's like, okay. So we proceeded to stay up all night to finish this out. And I helped him with the music. And then he didn't have his voiceover artist that we were supposed to have. So I ended up doing the voiceover. And it ended up being for a commercial for Butterfinger Buzz, which was a candy bar that had the Butterfinger candy bar, but they put caffeine in it. And they dug it. They did 2 different commercials, so I got a second chance to work with some additional music for him on a second commercial for it. And that was kind of him pulling me into, I don't know so much the deep end, but at least the shallow end of the pool of getting into production music and doing things for productions like film and TV and video games and whatnot. Now, prior to that, I had done some work for another friend of mine who lives in Australia, who is pretty big in the video game world, where he had me play guitar on some stuff that was for a Tiger Woods video game, a rugby video game, and a few other video games. So while I didn't write the music, I was the one that played the guitar parts for it.
Well, it's still cool.
It was really difficult. So once Robert did that, he then brought me in he played me another song that he had, and he said, what do you think? And I said, well, you can't use the melody. And he's like, well, why not? And I said, because that melody is the same melody as one of Avril Lavigne's most popular songs called Complicated. And he, I guess, either maybe heard the song and didn't realize it and just kind of it filtered itself back out, because that does happen.
It does. It does.
And so I told him, I said, you can't use this melody. So maybe he goes, well, can you help me rewrite it? So I did. And that ended up being a track that we called They're Not That Into You, Not That Into You. So just the words, Not That Into You. And the interesting thing about that is it was happening right at the time as the book and the movie, He's Not That Into You, was like blowing up and becoming huge. So we finished the song, and because he was working with this company called APM, he put it into their system, and before it was even hard released, it had like 1,000 uses on all kinds of things.
Oh, wow.
Which is like unheard of in the business. So suddenly, because there's an additional name attached to this song, which was me, I'm the new guy situation, all eyes are on me, like, who's this guy and how did this happen? So let's hire him to do some more. So a lot of it was me getting hired to write production music that then gets used, and I have no kind of really say in it other than I see royalty checks when it gets used.
Well, that's
which
good.
is great.
I'm glad.
It's fine.
I'm glad you get paid for the tracks you help to create. Either in producing it and maybe even playing a part in it, as you say, like playing the guitar or something. So that's a good thing that you get to get some recognition and get some well-earned money from it in the nicest way.
Say that again.
In the nicest way possible. Without coming over as like all we care about is the money. No, it's not about the money. It's just about because you've done some great things, and on your website you've mentioned everything you've been in. So when did you find out that that all these songs you helped to produce or be a part of by whatever it may be? How did you come across that all these different TV shows and movies use some kind of that song?
In terms of that first song, that actually came from just information from Robert initially. And then what a lot of these production libraries and distributors do is they have what they call a hard release. So then they announce something has come out. So the big first thing for that song, Not That Into You, was it got used in like Major League Baseball. And it was like background music for a lot of things for Major League Baseball, which is big here in America.
And now here as well, it's big over here as well now, because in 2019, they hosted the first ever series in London. So it was it was going to be an annual thing here, but that didn't last very long because of the current situation we're all in. So hopefully, years to come, we can come back to London again, probably a continuous series, to say.
Right. So beyond that, the way that I tend to figure things out of where things have been used and done and placed, more often than not, just comes from royalty statements that I get from my performance rights organization, because they have to tell you this show on this airing at this time and then how much you got from it, that kind of thing. So I go through my royalty statements to see, hey, where did such and such, it just tells me what song and what show.
Okay.
And so that's how I generally tend to find out a lot of the production type things.
Gotcha.
Now there have been things where I was specifically hired, like the theme to Night Watch.
Yes.
I was hired for that. And that's another one of those instances where I was brought in, I was hired to do it, and when I did it, the reaction of what happened in the timeline that it happened in was like unheard of. So I did this theme, they loved it. It got approved in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
Which in the TV industry, it usually takes 3 months. So that was really, really weird.
Very impressive as well.
Yeah, I guess. I like I said, I was so new to the situation, I had no idea, and it was just like, okay, this is my normal, because that's my first attempt and my first thing, and that's how it happened. And I talked to several other people that have worked in the industry or Like, one is a good friend of mine who used to head up Fox Sports Music. When I told him the news, he was just like, dude, that's impossible. Nothing happens that fast in TV. And I was like,
what?
It did. So,
first time for everything.
Go ahead.
First time for everything, isn't it, really? And everything has to be broken, kind of thing. Nothing can last forever.
Yeah. So it made me feel real good. So now it's like a lot of the times when I get told about a show that's like looking for music, I go, and if it's a brand new show, I ask if they have had their theme song written. And I've had a few shots at some other themes, and unfortunately I have not yet landed that next theme, but hopefully soon I will.
Hopefully soon, and we keep your fingers crossed for you. And unfortunately, I've never heard of the show Night Watch, but I did see on your social media that you've discussed that and you've worked with them, and I know it's a TV show you're talking about, which didn't use your theme in the end as well. So, but hopefully, 2021 will be the year where we get to see the TV theme. Because I know in these new TV shows, this is what I've noticed in the past few years, they don't really do a long theme tune in the first series, unless it gets, what's the word, like rehired or gets, extended for another one, for season 2, and then they do a whole different intro, more in-depth intro than the season 1. That's what I've noticed in the past few years. I don't know why they're going with that, but maybe because they don't want to waste a lot of money on the first season, just to see how many people tune in, and then if they got an audience, then do a longer, more in-depth intro from season 2 onwards, but...
Yeah, not exactly sure about that either. And the funny thing is, I actually don't own a television. So
you don't?
Now,
wow.
No, I've never owned a TV. Personally. Now, that's not to say that there haven't been TVs in places where I've lived, but I have never owned one.
Got ya.
But that being said, apparently there's a new TV show, and I've heard about it. It's about a girl who walks around with songs going in her head and then breaks out into song and dance in the middle of the show in reaction to the other characters.
Interesting.
I've heard that show has like an actual theme song like the old school TV shows used to have in like the 70s and the 80s and maybe the early 90s, with things like I get one of the most famous ones I can think of is the theme song to Cheers.
Yeah.
Everybody Knows Your Name kind of thing. And maybe that will help make a comeback for like actual theme songs that people can relate to and remember and sing. So if that happens, I'm hoping that I can get a few more like that, because I'm really good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, fingers crossed. And again, 2021 hopefully be the great year for you and for your talents. And we hope that it will be too long before your next TV show, which you get to actually get hired by a TV company. But I'm just going to throw you some names now from the list you've mentioned, and I'm hoping from the top of your head, hopefully you will know what song was used in that show, because again, these are shows I watched, so I hope you will know. If not, just say pass and we can move on to the next one, okay?
I won't know a single one of, well, try me, but I'm going to probably be like, I don't know. I can look it up, but I won't know.
No, that's fine. So I want to know if you know this. Again, we can just pass. You're going to pass on all these probably, but oh well, we can try. Street Life on Deck. Do you know what song was used on there? No song. No.
I don't even know the show.
That's fair enough. What about WWE then?
I'm going to assume that it was one of the songs from an album called Uber Angst.
Okay.
But which one it was, I have no idea. And the only reason why I say that
as well, because I'm curious to know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either. But the reason why I would say that is just because of the fact that it's wrestling, and the type of music that usually goes into that is a very, very energetic, kind of punky kind of thing. And that's what that album was. Yeah, well, I'm going to assume that's from the Uber Angst material.
Well, yeah, you would think it'd be, pumped up and, getting the high energy, but not always like that at a wrestling show, I have to say. But most of the time it is. Have you checked out WWE on social media?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I actually just got into a little bit of a row with I don't even know the wrestler's name at this point.
Oh,
He had posted something about Star Wars and had mentioned that he thought that Rogue One was the worst Star Wars movie ever made. And I heavily disagree. So I made a tongue-in-cheek tweet about him having possible brain damage, which, not knowing a ton about wrestling, apparently was a very sore spot for a lot of his fans.
Yes.
And caused me some grief in terms of like just people taking a lot of personal pot shots at me.
Yeah.
While I was not trying to take a personal pot shot at him, I was getting a lot of personal pot shots reacted at me. So, but to the extent of like, what I know it's a wrestling thing and I know it's a league, but I don't know anything beyond that. I don't know who's involved except for, I think at one point, maybe Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and is it owned by Steve Austin, or does he own one of the other wrestling leagues? Because that's like the extent of my wrestling knowledge.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but Steve Austin does not own any wrestling leagues at the moment. Okay. But he might do in the future. But he does have a TV show though on the USA Network.
Okay.
Called something to do with Steve Austin, something like that, on USA Network every Monday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. Free plug there. I don't work for USA or any TV networks as of yet. Another one is Law and Order. I don't know what song they would use for that because they've got. Assuming for me, it's like they got the good crime scene, like a crime music they would use. I'm not really familiar with the song they might have used for that from what you guys have produced.
If I knew the year, I might be able to take a stab at it, or if I had my royalty sheets in front of me, I'd be able to tell you exactly which one it was. But boy, if I'd have known that, I would have got that out.
Always for next time.
The answer to
always
it
for next time.
Yeah, and it's quite possible.
Yeah,
it's quite possible that it could be, although I highly doubt it. There's some guitar stuff that I did, specifically the very first version of what I did was for the Kardashians show.
Oh, yeah,
and I was specifically asked to write what they called angsty, pensive, guitar-sounding music. And apparently I nailed it so well that the Kardashians used it for years.
Wow.
And it was like something that I did fairly quick, and netted more than I ever made with my artistic music that I tend to put my heart and soul into, which is kind of weird. If I would think that Law and Order would probably use something similar along those lines, but I have no clue off the top of my head if that's one of those tracks.
Well, either way, it's impressive. And would you know this then? Would you know when they use a track which was produced, which you helped work done and even play the part? Would they? Do you think they might have credit you in the credits? At the end of the show, kind of thing, or do you think not?
More often than not, they probably credit the production library that owns the music than they would the individual composer.
That's
so
fine.
The only reason why I actually know particular things is because, like as I said, the performance rights organization that I'm a part of, and every composer, musician that is part of one gets these royalty statements that are actual breakdowns of where things were used. If you are the actual composer of an actual show, you get what they call cue sheets.
Right.
So, which is further ways of you to be able to say, I know exactly where it was used here. My PRO had better know that it was used here, kind of thing. But I don't get those. So the production library would actually get those when I do music for them. So yeah, I without looking at the actual royalty sheet, there's no way for me to know off the top of my head.
Well, this is we're going to do now. We're going to book this in right now here live. So the next time we speak, you can have your.
I will be more prepared.
Yeah, you can have your cheap. You can have your cheap seats. I think that's called cheap help in your documentation to help you to say, yep, it was used on this show. On this, whatever it is. But yeah, so next time we have you on the show, have your paperwork there so we can run off a little list and thinking, okay, I know that song now. Yes, I remember listening to that on that show, on that episode, because there's a few. Because I was quite interested, I thought it'd be, when I clicked on credits, I didn't know what to expect. But then I thought, and then I was going down the list, I think this is a very long list you've been a part of. So huge, impressive list that you can say, look, I've been featured on this show and this show, and out of the shows you've listed, by the way, which one is the biggest one you did not expect you would be a part of, or?
Well, I guess I can't say the Kardashians because I was expected to be on that when I was hired to do a particular track. Yeah. That's a good question. There's a lot of shows on that list that I'm not even familiar with. I didn't even know they existed. So, and I hate to say that, but again, like I said, I don't own a television, so I try not to spend my days watching TV.
Yeah.
Although I do watch some shows, but I do it all streaming now. And if there was something in... I'll say this. The 700 Club is probably the most bizarre one to me.
Okay.
Mainly because I'm not a Christian. I'm not into the religion thing.
Fair enough.
So the fact that the 700 Club used music that I did just kind of was like, hey, wow, I wonder what song that was, because I didn't even look it up. I just was like, hey, I got the royalty sheet that says I used it. It's like, all right. But there's a whole lot of those shows on that list that I'm not even familiar with. I never watched them. I didn't know they existed. It's just, you do a piece of music, the brief says do this thing, and then you do it, and then it's like it goes out and you don't even think of it anymore, and then it comes back and you're making money from it, and you look to see where, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, don't know.
That's good. But yeah, you've done some great work, and I'd be say we can't wait to see what you do next. So also as well, we want to know this. I want to know this, of course, but I mean, like, who inspired you then to become a songwriter / producer or whatever you call yourself? Who inspired you, as well? What have been some of your favorite moments?
Okay, so the reason why I got into music in the first place, and this is one of those bizarre kind of things because it doesn't seem like it would correlate, is that in high school, we had a lip sync contest. And a group of myself and 3 other friends got together to lip sync to Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. And originally I was slated to be the bass player. And so we got together and practiced, because I didn't play an instrument at this point. None of us did, really. And it was kind of obvious that the guy that was originally supposed to be the guitar player had no concept of how the guitar even worked. And because I had a friend who was actually a guitar player and a very good one, he was willing to loan me his guitar and kind of show me where I should put my hands at different points in the song. So it would at least kind of look like I knew what I was doing. Yeah. So at the second rehearsal, I brought the guitar and we decided to switch roles. So I was no longer the bass player. He became the bass player and I was now going to be the guitar player. And I mimed the areas of the guitar and such that my friend had showed me. And we practiced it a couple times. And then when we went to actually perform it, we unfortunately didn't win, which kind of disappointed not only us, but a lot of other people. And I think the reason why is because we took it a little maybe too far. In that the guy playing Ozzy, we actually took a rubber bat and stuffed it with the like strawberry jelly or something. And he bit the head off that bat and the rubber jelly came out, which was a little too much for some people to kind of digest, I guess, because we did it as a spoof to the original story that Ozzy apparently bit the head off a bat. And so we ended up, I think, in third place. We didn't win. But a large number of my classmates came to me and said, hey, do you really know how to play guitar? Because that was really amazing and it looked like you were really playing it. So I thought, if it's this easy to fool people, I'm going to learn how to do this. So that's what I did. And I started taking guitar lessons, and it kind of went all downhill from there as
Yeah.
far as like getting into music. And originally my intent was to just be a guitar player who was like the hired guitar guy for some famous singer. That was my original intent.
Got you.
And then I went to music school and had a particular class with a guy who was a teacher at the school who came out with this story apparently, and he literally just said, if you want to do music as a career, don't ever get a day job. And it was kind of weird to hear that from a teacher, right? Well, not necessarily weird, but it was like one of those things where it kind of like, it struck me pretty hard.
Yeah.
It's like, don't get a day job. If you're going to do music, you just do only music. And I took that to heart and never got a day job. And every musician friend that I ever see that gets a day job at some point in their career, they end up moving out of music and just doing the day job. And the reason that that teacher said that, he goes, is what will happen is you will get comfortable with the money and the music won't matter as much. So I took that to heart. I never got a day job. Just stuck with music the entire time. That it's been rough here and there, but good advice, I thought.
It's good advice, and for the most part, you have been good. You've been able to survive with just music.
Yeah, it's had its up and downs, but I have been able to survive with just the music. So that's for just being a career musician. As far as the producing thing,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a plan to become a producer, but I did read an article back in the days of when you could trust articles,
Yes.
so to speak, by about Frank Zappa. Now, I was never a huge Zappa fan, but I was a fan of a guitar player that played with Zappa, which was Steve Vai. So I read up on Zappa and about that kind of stuff and started learning kind of his modus operandi of how he operated. And the thing about Frank Zappa is he mentioned it in one of those articles that I read. Don't ever give up your publishing. Always own your own publishing. And to me, that was kind of like, okay, I took it a step further by produce your own stuff too, so to speak. And so I started learning just on a cassette recorder on how to record music and just trial and error for years. I did not go to school for recording and producing and that kind of stuff. That just kind of happened over the course of time. But the music thing, I went to music school for that. I took guitar lessons to become a really good guitar player, that kind of thing. Those are the that I kind of took. And then as far as getting into like production music, as I said, Robert just called me up one night and said, hey, I need some help. And that was my toe into doing that. And it got me into that world and it worked out really well. So generally speaking, a lot of the times it's somebody else who has come along and said, hey, can you help me with something beyond where I was going to school and learning for something, where that turns into something for me to take in, learn, and incorporate into what I do.
Mm. Very good advice as well from your journey. So like for anybody who's out there thinking, for hanging it up, kind of thing, maybe not, maybe it isn't for me. Well, I might have learned something new about music this evening through that from your teacher back in the day, telling you to not quit on music. Don't get a day job. Stick through it, because you will get some good times. And as you can see, my guest here today has, had some tough times, but he's still doing it. He's still got some more ups and downs, I'm sure of, as well.
Yeah, well, if my agent is correct, this year will be a good year, but it still kind of comes down to having COVID-19 being relegated to the past but we'll see how
Now,
that
the
plays
other
out.
thing is, I did not reach out through your agent. I reached out to you directly. I'm sure we're throwing up a red flag to some people. Because usually we had to an agent, and then they, reach out to you, saying, "Hey, this guy wants to do an interview." Then, then that kind of.
Well, yeah, she's not a PR agent,
okay.
so I'm not worried about that. She's like,
That's fine.
she's my agent for getting things like work on video games and film, that kind of thing. So, due to my producing ability and my recording and mixing abilities, there are some things coming up, hopefully, that she has told me about that should make 2021 be a very interesting year.
Good.
That's all I want to say about it, because it's like if I start talking too much about something, it tends to end up not happening.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have it happen and then talk about it later.
That's fine.
So, but that being said, one of my most popular things that I've done in the video game world was through her, was for a game called Go Vacation. And I still get people that email me. Like, I was looking on YouTube a couple of days ago. There was a message from somebody who said, "Hey, I think you're the guy that sang on Go Vacation. Dude, I just want to say that you helped mold my childhood." I was like, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's a good message to get, that people are really they find out, hey, this is the guy that sang on this, or this is the guy that did this. It makes me feel good, because it's like, it's like they're telling it to me in a way of yeah, that was a really awesome thing. So it's just weird to hear that now, but it still happens. I'm a few months back, I got somebody who was contacting me, and I think they were from up in Canada, looking for an actual copy of the original CD of Go Vacation, which I got one copy, and it's still sitting in shrink wrap, but I didn't know that I had that copy in my possession, but I did find it. But he told me the same kind of story. He's like, "Dude, this particular song is my favorite song." And when he found it, I told him something about the song that he didn't know, because it's not common knowledge. Yeah. He was just like, "Oh, thank you so much." And it's like, "You're welcome." It's like, I didn't get credit for it, but you're welcome. So
what video games have you been involved with over the years, or which one have you enjoyed to be a part of then?
Let's see. So Go Vacation is probably the most popular one that I don't know if that's true. Tiger Woods was another game that I played guitar on. Popular. Somebody else did it. There was a rugby game that was probably more popular down in Australia than it was ever anywhere else, but I did the guitar work on that. Let's see. Trying to think. There's another game that I sang on, but I can't remember the title of the game. There in Japan, there's a game style called pachinko, I think it's called. Okay. And I sang on the soundtrack of a couple of those games. Very, very different from what I am known as, probably of what you were researching in terms of my music as an artist. Yeah. This was stuff that was in the style of Avenged Sevenfold. It's guttural, very growly, heavy metal rock lyrics kind of thing. And the reason why I remember this one of the particular games that I did on this is because I recorded it at a guy's studio, and it's one of these guys who in the industry has a credit list that's 3-story building long of very, very big stuff. And we got into the studio, and he had worked with me once before and probably paid me the highest compliment that I've ever gotten in my entire career, at least coming from someone like him. There's actually been a few big compliments from various people, but we got 3 takes in on this particular game, and he was just floored. And not that he didn't know that I could do this kind of stuff, but just turns around and he's pays me this thing of saying, "Man, it's really awesome how you're able to sing perfectly on top of yourself," because we were triple tracking the vocals as the style called for. And he goes, just look at all these takes on the screen of like all these parts that we had done to stack it all up. And he goes, it's just impressive that I don't have to copy and paste this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I can feel it. That was my response on that particular one. With the Go Vacation stuff, they had scheduled me for, I want to say, I think 2.5 hours prior to the next singer coming in that I was to duet with, do a couple of songs with them, and then leave.
Gotcha.
And they were thinking that the singer coming in was going to have to wait. Instead, I got everything done, triple tracked, done in multiple styles for the game within an hour. So we were sitting around just shooting the shit for an hour and a half before the next person showed up. So they were just shocked at that. It was like the speed of how how quick it went and how it was done. It was just like they couldn't believe it. And I was like, I'm not going to come in and waste your time.
Yeah.
That's how I am. I do my homework. I know what I'm doing. I come in, I knock it out. That's me.
Yeah. I agree with you there, because usually on this show, I don't usually do any research on the show usually, but sometimes every now and then I like to do some research just before I just spurt out random topics and be like, yeah, you didn't do that. Yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't do that kind of thing. And that kind of happened this evening on this show with one of the questions I asked. But again, you can blame the people on the internet for that question. Anyway, are you in any other projects outside of music? Do you do any other projects outside of music, or is it all music with you? And do you have any merch which people can buy, to represent you when you're, on what you do or not?
Yes and no. In terms of like things around, in terms of career and everything else. So pretty much everything relates to music in that regard in my life, because that is my business. It's just music. And on my business cards, when I used to have them, it didn't label me as like a mix engineer or a producer or a guitar player or a band or what have you. My business card literally just said my name and the word music underneath it, and then my phone number.
Gotcha.
And people are like, music? Like what? It's just like, what do you need? So it's like being able to do all these different things and do them at a fairly high level of competence. I didn't want to just say that I was the jack of all trades, because usually when people say that, that they're going to probably suck at pretty much every one of them. And I know now, based on all the feedback that I've gotten, that that's not the case in my case. So I just tried to make it as vague as possible. It's just music. If it's music related, likely I can do it. That being said, I also do a podcast called Inside the Recording Studio, which is every Friday at noon, which it just released 6 minutes ago. And we do a weekly podcast with a buddy of mine, and we talk about music and how to record it, how to get better at recording it, how to understand your gear, how to be a producer, how to be a mix engineer, mastering engineer, that kind of thing. Musicians can get a lot out of it, knowing how the recording process technically works, and the music geeks that actually work in music with like the hands-on kind of recording process. And our numbers have started to kind of take off since Christmas. And we had our first growth spurt, I think, back in like late August. We had our second growth spurt just right at Christmas, which is really strange. And it's nice. And some of the feedback we've been getting is that we are fitting the niche between the uber beginners that like learn something in 5 minutes, turn around and make a video pretending like they actually know what they're doing and put it right out on YouTube. And the other extreme, where you have the high-end professional dudes that have the big names that have worked on the big projects, who put out these master classes and are constantly trying to sell you on how to record by charging you money kind of thing. And we're fitting like this niche in between, where we're not throwing it in your face, but we've been doing this a while, that we know what we're doing, and we're just kind of relaying the information and building up the audience so that we can hopefully get advertisers to start paying us, rather than the audience trying to pander to the audience. We're just trying to get the audience so that we can get the advertisers.
Yeah,
and we're getting close. We're almost there.
Well, that's good.
So,
well, hopefully, again, I mean, another goal which you can probably hopefully succeed in 2021. Look at this already. Look at this. Think about this. 2020 was probably a rubbish year for you. This year, even better. This year, I can just tell already. You got all these projects coming out. You're gonna get this, hopefully, some advertisement as well for your podcast. You know, it's just looking up. It's getting even. It's going to be a better year for you. I hope so.
I certainly hope so too. I've been also in the past through 2020 being a voting member of NARAS, which is the people that put on the Grammys. I've had a lot of people asking me if I put out any music this year, and I kept responding, no, I will put out music when there's a widely accepted vaccine or cure for COVID.
Gotcha.
So I've got a stockpile now of a whole bunch of singles. And when that becomes like the starting point of when I said the widely available vaccine and cure, and people can actually start being part of normal life, well, normal is what we're going to have going forward. That's when I will start releasing music again. And so I have probably enough music to drip out new releases in terms of new singles about every 6 weeks for about 2 years.
Wow.
So I've got a lot of music stockpiled and ready to go. It's just a matter of finishing up on some videos and finishing the mixes on a couple of songs in that regard. Outside of that, I am the spearhead of getting the music, a music recording studio and building as part of a new arts and culture district in the town that I'm at. So that's still in process. That's been actually an ongoing thing for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And aside from that, I'm just looking forward to getting out of the house a little bit more often.
well, I hope you do this year, and I do hope the restrictions where you are not imposed for too long more, and hopefully things start to get a bit back to normal back in like 2019, and be able to go back to how things were before 2020 came along. My final question for you tonight.
Well, before you ask that question,
go on.
The one other thing you asked about merch.
Yes, I
so on my website, I have an online store. So right now, all of the merch that's technically there isn't like your traditional like T-shirts and hats and that kind of thing. It's actually copies of music, transcriptions of how things were played, that kind of thing. I'm slowly adding more to it, and hopefully before the end of 2021, there'll be limited edition T-shirts for particular songs, limited edition hats, those kinds of things. So it's coming, but the store is on the website and is already there. It's just right now everything's digital stuff that you can buy at the moment.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for clarifying that. And you can check out his website, Jody Whitesides.com, to check out his merch of his CDs and such like that. And you can also find him on Twitter and Instagram. We've been sharing the links throughout today's show. So again, on Twitter, it's just Jody Whitesides, and I believe it's the same on Instagram as well. I keep it.
It's pretty much on every social media service
and YouTube as well.
Yeah, at YouTube, JodyWhitesides.com, at Facebook, at Twitter, at TikTok, at Triller, at Snapchat. It's very hard to make sure that I get my name on those services.
Yeah, right.
So it keeps it easy like that. It's the same across everything.
Exactly. Very easy, very simple. But unlike me, because because Twitter at the moment does not allow me to have my preferred username of the Edward Fowler show. It's apparently too long. But if you're a verified person, they don't care. They will give it to you. Apparently.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. Because there's a guy called. I've seen a few Twitter accounts that's got a long name and they're all verified. So unless they contacted their Twitter themselves and they sorted it out for them, I've not tried that method yet. But if that is a method, I'll use that method.
I'd suggest it. I don't know. I've had people ask me how to get verified, and the way I got verified is not a way that people can get verified anymore, so I have no answer for it. As far as my name, though, I think I've always had my name even before I was verified, so I don't know if they changed it or not, because I think my name's longer than your name, so I would assume you'd be able to get it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I type in Edward Fowler, and then I type in the word show after it, and it lets me put SHO.
Oh, so the W's one too long.
Yeah, so it's like on other channel, on other social media, on like other Twitter accounts, it's like longer and they're verified. It's like I'm so angry, I'm going to change my name to that. Makes it easier for people to know it's me. But hey-ho, I'll have to wait until I'm verified. If that's 10 or 20 years from now, if Twitter's still a thing, maybe not. It might be a better platform where they let you use as a long username as you like, and that'd be much better for me. But my final question for you on this lovely Friday evening is, in my country, is anybody, who do you think I should contact next to come on this show after following the great people we've had on this week? Because we've had on a hip-hop artist called Trey Cinco. We then had an MMA fighter from Israel, Haim. And then to finish the week off, we've had you on the show.
Yay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry about yesterday.
Thank you. No worries. At least you came on today. That's the main thing.
You're welcome. Who should you have on next?
From your connections.
From my connections?
Yeah, from your connections. Makes it easier for you, doesn't it? You know, because I know you don't too much.
Boy, you know, the funny thing is a lot of the people that I know are not heavy social media people. So, How you know who would actually be a really good interview, and he probably would do this. He's worked with a lot of like really cool artists as a bass player. His name is Jesse Stern. He is. You think I'm like understated? He takes understatement even more, but he's got a lot more style to it. I guess is the best way to say it. Yeah, Jesse Stern. See if you can get him. I mean, I can. If you need me to introduce you, I can. He's a bass player. We've written some songs together. Actually, the song "Till We Meet Again," if you've listened to that one, that's a song that he and I wrote together. Yeah, I think he'd be a good interview.
Well, thank you for the suggestion. I've just Googled it here, so hopefully this is the right person. It's been a pleasure having you on the Edward Fowler show here for the first time ever, and only a few people who follow me on Twitter to come on this show. So thank you for being one of the first people who followed me first on this show. And do you know how you came across my profile? I'm just curious. You probably don't know, but did I just happen to post something which you liked and followed, or?
I'm going to admit that there was a point in time where I was looking for accounts that specifically had mentioned music. Okay. Just the word music in any of their tweets. Right.
So I must have used music. I must have done.
Yeah, you must have said something about music at some point, and that's probably how it happened.
Gotcha. So did you use a hashtag for music, or did you just type in the word music without any hashtags?
I was using a service that allowed you to just search Twitter in general, and just for words. And I don't know if words pop up because they're just in the tweet, or if it was specifically hashtags that were required. I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, I was just curious because I might use that method more often, just to maybe get more verified people following. I thought I'd ask you that. I'm thinking, I don't know why. I got people from like Fox LA News. They follow me on Twitter. God knows why. No idea, but they do. Nice. And I've got some other music people following me. I've got some actors following me as well. So I've got a lot of people, tuning in, follow me on Twitter. But it's good to have you liking my content and staying followed me as well. This is quite good because I don't usually see any of your tweets until the other day, until I reached out to you. That's why I saw your tweet from you. Thinking, when I saw the tweet, thinking, who is this guy? I don't remember following you because it's been a few years ago. So then I figured out who it was. So stay on the phone because I'm going to share my screen with you and I'm going to show you the the website where I received where I got the footage that question from, and then you can be like, oh right, that person,
Right.
yeah, I need to have rid of them,
Okay.
kind of thing. But anyway, if you did enjoy my guest, my good interview with my guest Jody here today, then make sure you do leave a like on YouTube. Make sure you do leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about today's interview, if you enjoyed it, any questions or any suggestions of how I can improve, or how my guest reacted to my questions, or how, or even the topics we discussed tonight. And if you're new around here, make sure you do smash that subscribe button, because you're always notified when a new live video drops, because I think I'm one of the few people to do a live show with interview. Because usually a lot of people pre-record them and just release a clip, and sometimes a clip can come out all out of context, and then the guest can get angry, can't they? And not very happy about what the clip was. So we don't like doing that. We're going to release 4 episodes on YouTube for free, and but nobody can take it out of context. Well, they can, but when they actually go on the actual interview, they can see actually they just cut this bit out and not anything else. You will receive some notifications in the next 24 hours of a clip from this interview. Don't worry. It will not be taken out of context, because it will include my question and then your answer, if you get me. But for all I say though, on the Edward Fowler Show, I don't know when the next show will be, but please stay subscribed, because you never know when it might be. But stick to my social media. On your screens there, _ Edward Fowler _ I can't use my own name, because that's taken by an account which has been inactive since 2009. Please delete it, Twitter, please. And you can find me on Instagram, Edward Fowler Show. So easy on Instagram. If you do follow me there. I'm more active on Instagram nowadays than Twitter. But there you go.